Hey guys, it's Mr. Cole, and today we're going to be talking about limits. So the very first thing you want to do with limits is, this is our problem. The very first thing you want to do with limits is you want to plug in the limit value, as long as it's not infinity, and see if it's possible. So that's what we're going to do first. So we're going to plug in 0 everywhere we see x. And you can see we already run into a problem, right? So what we end up with is 0 over 0. And you cannot do 0 over 0. You cannot do anything over 0, in fact. So what we're going to do is we're going to have to switch the entire form of our equation by multiplying by the conjugate, okay? So if you're not familiar, multiplying by the conjugate, if your original equation is a plus b, then your conjugate, so here, original, if your original is a plus b, then your conjugate will be a minus b, okay? So only sign that we're changing here is the sign in between the two, really the sign of the b, okay? So our original equation is right here. I'll put it in brackets for us. This part up here, right? The square root of x plus 5 minus the square root of 5, okay? So that's our original equation. I'll rewrite it down here. Square root of x plus 5 minus square root of 5 over x, right? And we're going to need to multiply by the conjugate. So all we're going to do is we're changing this minus to a plus, okay? We're not changing anything else in this top part equation, okay? Just the minus to a plus. So x plus 5 plus square root of 5 over, and you have to multiply it by the same thing on the top and bottom, because then it's essentially multiplying by 1, okay? So this is a multiplication symbol. All right, now we're good to go, right? So very first thing you'll see is that you have to FOIL or box method this part up here, right? So let's make a box. Okay, and we have square root x plus 5 minus square root of 5. And we have square root x plus 5 plus square root of 5, right? So square root of x plus 5 times square root of x plus 5, right? Essentially what that gives us, because they're both the same exact thing, what it gives us is it gives us square root of x plus 5 squared, right? And when you square a square root, it goes away, right? Which will then equal just regular old x plus 5, okay? So that's the result from this, from these two multiplying together, okay? Now we're going to multiply this, this part by this part down here. So let's do that. And we get square root of 5 times square root of x plus 5. And this is as far as I'm going to take it for now. In fact, I'm going to refer to it like this from now on, okay, just for simplicity. So this is how it's going to show up from now on, okay? And you'll see why I don't simplify it in just literally a second here. All right, so let's do this part next. We have negative, don't forget the negative, square root of 5 times square root of x plus 5, and we're going to do the same exact thing to it. Okay? So what we end up with here is negative square root of 5 times square root of x plus 5, right? Finally, we have negative square root of 5 times square root of 5, right? We can take the negative 1 out. We multiply them together, and we get regular old 5, right? Don't forget this negative here, okay? So we end up with this negative 5, okay? So we FOILed out the top, right? Now we're going to sum all of these together. We're going to add them all up, right? So x plus 5, sorry, my hand's in the way, plus square root of 5, square root of x plus 5, minus square root of 5, minus 5, right? So what you'll see right away is that these two right here, this one and this one, numbers 1 and 2. They're the same, but one is positive and one is negative, which is good for us because they cancel each other out, okay? And now what we're left with is x plus 5 minus 5. Well, plus 5 minus 5 also cancels out, right? And all we're left with in the numerator is x, okay? So keep that in mind. Now this is all over, keep in mind, right? We're going to do our denominator now. And all we're going to do is we are going to FOIL it, right? So we're going to distribute the value. So x times square root x plus 5. And then also plus x times square root of 5, right? So we end up with down here, x times x plus 5 plus x times square root of 5, right? So I'm going to rewrite all of this in a easier to understand way. So we're left with x over x square root x plus 5 plus x square root 5, right? Don't forget to carry your limit down with you. That was my bad. You should be carrying your limit with you all the way down, okay? So right here as well. And right here. So now we can test it and we can see and see if we can plug in the 0. So let's do that. And we get 0 over 0 times square root 0 plus 5 plus 0 times square root 5. And what we end up with yet again is 0 over 0. You say, what gives, right? Why can't we simplify this out? We're just gonna have to change the form of it again, okay? And the way that we're gonna do that is we're going to factor an x out of the denominator and we're gonna cancel it with the x in the numerator, okay? So we're gonna factor out the x in the denominator. So this is x over. We're gonna factor it out. So we're gonna take the x out of both of these values here. Okay, and now what we can do, don't forget your limit. This is important. This is sort of like a math rule. You got to carry it down with you all the way until you plug in the value. Okay, that's why I didn't write it over here, is because I plugged in the value. So now what we have is the x's cancel out. They become 1, right? And what we're left with is limit as x approaches 0 is 1 over square root x plus 5 plus square root 5, okay? Now let's plug in 0 again and see what we get. 1 over square root 0 plus 5 plus square root 5. And what we get, right, is we get 1 over square root 5 plus square root 5, which we can call 1 over, because they're adding, right, 2 square root 5. And we're done. This is the answer, right? Now, if you want to be really correct about it, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to radicalize it. Get this square root off the bottom, okay? So we're going to do that. Multiply by square root of 5 over square root of 5. And what we end up with is square root of 5 over 2 times 5, right? Which gives us our answer of square root of 5 over 10. Okay, so this is our answer. This is the most correct way to put it. And that's about it. So if you ever run into problems where you get 0 over 0 or infinity over infinity, like the 0 over 0 we got here and the 0 over 0 we got here, you have to find a way to change the form of it, okay? Do whatever it takes, whether it be multiplying by the conjugate, even if it's sort of like taking a step backwards, right? Because up here we had the square root was already in the numerator. When I was emailed this problem, I said, why are we multiplying by, why are we trying to radicalize it when it's already in the numerator? But really what we're trying to do is we're trying to just change the form of it, okay? So that we can plug in the 0 and get an answer. So that's about it for this video. If you guys have any more questions, feel free to email me. Just try your best to stay safe, okay? See you guys.